The CEO approached me the other day. He showed me this report that he gives right here, and I changed the name. This is not the real company name. I changed it to protect his privacy. But he showed me this report that he sends out every couple weeks. It takes him a day, half a day to fill this out. And let's be honest, it's not all that compelling. It's a lot of words on here. But he gives this to his board, his bank, revenue's up this much, margins down because of that. Here's the cash, here's the backlog. Every number has to be right. And this guy's a finance guy at a manufacturing organization. And the way he builds it's like how we build everything else. He's got this monster spreadsheet, and there's 250 tabs down here, just tons of information. And he hunts down the numbers. He finds the numbers because he's the CFO, and then he puts it in the report, and he writes little things about it, writes a sentence. And then he said, well, you know what? There's got to be with AI. I'm hearing a lot about ChatGPT, so I'm going to throw this spreadsheet into ChatGPT and ask it to do this automatically for me, make my report, and it kind of works. But it's a little bit more than what ChatGPT needs. You need to write some sort of application, some code. Bring in some more big guns. Maybe you write a Python script or something, a little micro app that can do this because it can. It can do it extremely well. If you've got a spreadsheet like this in your organization, that's a software application in the make. And that's the skill I want you to walk away with. It's not as hard as it looks. That's what I want to show you in this video. I'm going to show you that you can do this. I'm going to show you how I'm going to tackle this situation. Every bottleneck, every I have to do this again task is an opportunity in your organization. And instead of buying a SaaS solution, you can build it yourself with these two tools like Claude Code and Codex. And I'll show you that. I'll show you the architect builder method. I'll show you using my project launcher. I'll show you exactly how I'm going to do it. It's a long video. I'm going to show you in real time. I'll speed it up in the appropriate places, but I'm going to show you exactly how I would tackle this, my exact workflow. So let's tackle this. Let's get going. Okay, I want to show you just a few files here. He gave me a couple examples of reports in a Word document. He gave me that spreadsheet I was showing you. And then also I recorded a conversation with him. This is a transcript of us talking about his situation, everything that's here. So I highly encourage you to record your meetings, even if it's just you talking by yourself, get a transcript of it. And this is going to help because the first thing that I'm going to do is always a brainstorming piece. And the brainstorming piece is exactly what I did with this. And I'm going to use Claude, but you can use ChatGPT. I've got a bunch of projects in here. And one of them is my brainstorming one, which is the Ray Richards personal. Here's the chat that I did yesterday. And essentially what I did at the beginning is I just attached all of those files I just showed you. And I just said, hey, I want to brainstorm with you about this. I just turned on my microphone and said, I want to brainstorm. Came in, what are the opportunities? What can it look like? What would you recommend? Here's my vision. And essentially it kind of came up with these kind of business problems, the user's role, so yeah, it's basically telling me, and I won't read through all of this, but it's basically me going back and forth. How would I explain this problem? What can we build? And it gave me some ideas, and it gave me the green light personally, my own internal green light said, yeah, we can actually build this thing out. We can make it an app. So how would we do that? And we can make the decision of what we want the architect to be and then what the builder to be. The architect is going to be a large language model. You can do Claude. You can do Claude Cowork. I highly recommend Cowork if you can do it. ChatGPT. That's going to be your architect. And then your builder is going to be some coding agent. Codex, Claude Code. And so today I'm going to do Claude and Claude Code, and we'll show you how that's done. And to get started doing that, I'm going to start a new project, and we'll call it CFO Dashboard Report. And we're going to create that project. And this is going to be my architect, right? And so we're going to have to set up the architect. So how do we set up the architect? And particularly using the architect builder method that maybe you've seen some of my other videos about. This is how you get started. And I'm going to open up my project launcher, okay? So this is the project launcher. And again, shameless plug. I mean, this is why I made this. And I made this because you guys asked me about it. When I did that video a month ago showing me using it, you guys said, hey, can I get this tool? And so I made this available to you guys. But the first thing you want to do, notice in the help over here, there is a workflow setup because it can be kind of confusing, but this is the most difficult part. It can be a lot of friction to get this set up correctly. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to set up the architect. And the first thing it asks me to do, if you see right here, it says create a ChatGPT or Claude project, which is what we just did. So I created a project called CFO Dashboard, and this becomes my architect that I'll reuse across all the builds that we're going to do. And then it says, the second step is add the 126 method file as a project source. So in the architect setup, it says right there, there's a couple things. It says add this method starter. It's a markdown document that basically tells you everything. And again, this is why this tool is so essential or effective, is that we have this detailed architect builder method that I've really refined over the last year and a half. And you can look at the contents in here if you want to. And it just primes your architect to understand what the architect builder method is all about. So I'm going to download this markdown document to my hard drive. And then I'm going to go to my project. Again, if you do it in ChatGPT, it's the same thing. So I'm going to add that reference file in here so the project knows about the architect builder method. I'm going to go to my downloads. I'm going to upload it from my device. There's my architect builder method, the markdown file. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and load all those other files that we had here for reference, just so that we know. So I'm going to take, I can probably drag them and drop them here. I'm going to take all of this information that we had, and I'm going to put it in here for reference as well. And then the other thing that we have for the architect launcher is we want to load the ChatGPT or Claude project custom instructions. This gets us the personality of the project. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go to my project, and ChatGPT has the same thing, custom instructions. I'm going to put that in here. And again, it reinforces the architect builder method. I'm going to save those instructions. The ability to have those custom instructions along with this architect builder method document really makes this the architect. It makes it extremely powerful. And I'll show you as we start working it, right? So let's go back to the project launcher and let's look at the help section there. We created the project. We added the 120x method file as a project source, and then we pasted the custom instructions in the custom build, right? So we're set up in the architect. And now we need to start a new project within the project launcher for the first run. It's brand new. So the first thing is to fill out the intake form and generate a project. So I'm going to start here, go to the start page. And I got 3 types of projects I can create. I can do a website. I can continue with an existing project that already exists, and I want to get it in the architect builder method, or I can start a new one. So I'm going to start a new project here. And this is the part where we have to fill out all the intake form stuff, right? So, and I think it's noticeable here that the rough notes are enough, because the architect, when you start the conversation, it's going to force you to get answers out of you. So it's not going to create what I call the first architect pack until you have good answers in here. But it does help if you can answer all of these questions. Now you can just go in here and start typing what the business problem is, who the users, the roles, the current workflow. But remember, I had a brainstorming session already in Claude, right? I'm going to go over my brainstorming project, right? Which was the Ray Richards personal. And remember, I had this kind of brainstorm when I started here. So I got a lot of context. I got a lot of information in here. And one thing that the project launcher allows me to do is this optional step up here where it says, hey, do you have a ChatGPT or Claude conversation about this project? I do. So I'm going to copy this prompt in here. And this prompt is going to allow me to extract from that session, that brainstorming session, and allow me to fill in all these areas a lot more easy. I'm going to go into this chat, not into my project I just created, but just the old brainstorming chat conversation I had. And I'm going to paste this here. And essentially what it's doing is it's going to write everything so it can fill out that form. It's basically saying, it's like, hey, if we've already been talking about a project, use that context and help me fill it out. Interview me and then produce the intake. So that's what this prompt is doing. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that now. And we should get some information where we can fill out that form. Okay, came back and almost had a few more questions for me. So I'm going to answer these questions just by turning on my microphone here, capture it. As far as number 1, we'll just use the Summit Fabricators and Erectors, and project name. Yeah, just use your default. Project type, this is an internal project. Tech stack, I'll go with your recommendation. Cadence is, I think it's bi-monthly. And then I don't have a GitHub set up, but I'll set up here shortly. That should be enough for you. Okay, you can see that it's done with that output. It gave me a preview. I could certainly download this as a markdown file if I wanted to, or I could just copy the output. Basically, it took all the information out of our chat and put it in a format where we could fill out our intake form, which I'll show you. So I'm just going to copy it. It's probably easiest instead of downloading the file, but you can. And going back to the project launcher, it says paste your summary in here, or you can choose a file and upload. We're going to paste it, and then we just pre-fill the form. And it says it filled 18 of 18 fields. And again, it's just a nice way if you've got a chat already going and a lot of brainstorming, which I almost always do. Before I start a project, I'm always brainstorming with a large language model, and it fills out the information beautifully. And so we're going to go with that, but we'll go with this for the demo pretty much because in that brainstorming, I pretty much covered everything I wanted to do. So down here at the bottom, it says create architect workspace, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to create the architect workspace, and we now have a project called MD&A report generator, and we have all the information that we have input. It's just we can edit that if we need to, if we want to change anything. And let's go back to the workflow and see where we're at. So we set up our architect, start a project, we filled out the intake form. So here we just completed step 4, fill out the intake form and generate the project. That's what we've done. The next thing we need to do is download the zip, your scaffold project folder. And I'm going to stomp on the floor here, foot stomper. This is one of the most critical parts of doing the project launcher. So if we go back to our project, MD&A report generator, it says right here is to download the zip and save the generated folder. And so this is your architect builder scaffolding, which is so critical to the architect builder method. This is really why you buy the project launcher. So right there, we've got that zip file downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And in my downloads folder, there is the unzipped folder that was generated by the project launcher. And in it, it has all the documents, the architect packs, the places for the sprints. There's nothing in there right now because it's just primed and ready to go. This would be the most difficult part to set up. Obviously, you could copy and paste this, but having this set up and having this unique architect check starter prompt, which is what we're going to copy here next to start our conversation. But now this is your folder structure that gets everything set up. Now we're going to want to put this in a place where you put all of your projects. So in my case, I have a 120X folder on my hard drive on my desktop. I just open up that folder and I have a place for my project called builds. So I'm going to open up my builds folder. I'm going to take this new project and the folder structure and put it into my builds. Now you can put this anywhere. Put it in your projects, put it in your documents, wherever you want, wherever all of your projects are going to reside. So now I got this here. It's on my desktop and it's ready to get filled in by the architect and the builder. So the next part, and let's just go back just to show the workflow, is we downloaded the zip and we put it onto our hard drive. Now it says copy the architect starter prompt. And this is the project specific prompt that kicks off the architect. So I'm going to go back to my project and right here it says start the architect conversation. Now we can preview the starter prompt and notice that it's specific for our new project, right? It's got all the information. So this is specific to this project. And this is what gets the conversation going in your architect so that you're off to the races and everything's set up. So I'm going to copy this prompt and remember, we go back to where's our architect. Remember, in this case, I'm using Claude. So it's in my projects and it's in this new project that I created, right? The CFO dashboard report. And remember that we put in the architect builder method down here. And then we also got these custom instructions that are specific. So we are primed for a good architect conversation. And also too, notice that we put our context documents, the Word documents, and the spreadsheet in here as well. So we're ready to start the prompt. I'm going to use Fable 5 since it just came out yesterday, time of this recording, and let's just see how it goes. So I'm going to do everything in Fable 5 today, including in Claude Code. But we are with the architect, and this is our initial conversation. I'm going to paste that prompt that we did in there and start the conversation. Okay, I paused that. It took about 2 minutes to come up with this answer, and let's just go through this. This is the first conversation. He's going to act as the architect layer because he knows what the architect builder method is, and acting the architect layer before applying the discovery gate, he read the actual source materials and specifically the workbook. So that was a good reason why we had that. We added that as references. And here's his assessment. He said it passes. Now, the reason why it passed is because we did a really good intake form. It even says here, the intake is complete enough for Architect Pack 001. Remember, the job of the architect is to generate packs. And when I call packs, think of them as like if you were building a house, the architect is going to come up with detailed drawings and plans for the builder. And so in this case, Architect Pack 1 is going to be the first set of drawings that we're going to pass to the builder. So its job is not to create code. Its job is to create plans, specific plans for specific tasks, right? And so it said we had a pretty complete intake. That was the bonus of using that prompt to fill in all those intake forms. If we hadn't filled out all those intake forms, it would ask you a lot of questions. And so you've got a safety valve if you don't fill out the architect or the intake form as thoroughly as we did here. So it will ask you questions. But basically, it's verifying this. It's verifying the MD8 input tab is real and well structured, which is great. The manual inputs are already flagged in the tab itself, which is awesome. Entity is confirmed. But he does have some targeted questions for us before the pack. These are the ones that change what gets written into domain, decisions, ND, and the sprint blueprint. Cadence, the samples are month end, so we need to answer that. The entity scope is SV, and we'll do that. And Wesson, do the Excel Wesson appears anywhere, or are they internal? I'll say they're internal. So I'm going to answer those questions, and he says, answer what you can. Anything left open will be preserved in questions and label assumptions, so on and forth, and then you can explicitly say, generate the pack. Okay. Fair enough. So I'm going to go into here and I'm going to answer these questions. Yeah, as terms of the questions cadence, let's just do it for month end instead of bi-monthly. The entity scope, yes, let's do it as SFE level as is for now. And then Weston, yeah, they're internal only. You can mark them out as scope. And then the other thing I would also add too is did we include the ability to have an interactive dashboard in here? I can't remember if that was in the intake form. Answered, it says confirmed all three, and yes, the interactive dashboard is already in the intake. So again, I was just double checking to make sure. It lists as output 2 still open for my list. Q4 manual inputs, Q5 coordinating content, Q6 confidentiality, and then Q7 dashboard branding. We can answer those later. None of these block pack 001, and that's cool. And so let's say generate the pack, and I'll produce the architect pack 001 discovery. So let's do that. So I'm going to say generate the pack, and away it goes. Okay, so he's done. He created the architect pack 001. It is ready. So it's in the artifact over here. We can read this. That's going to be our job to put this in the appropriate folder over here in the architect pack. And we'll talk about that in a second. But let's just go over what's in this actual document. So he created this. I'm looking at the artifact. This is what's inside of it. Basically all these folders in our file structure are going to get updated. He's going to update state with our project state, what the project is. It's going to update decisions with all the decisions that we've made. It's going to update domain. Look at all this historical knowledge. This is very powerful. It's going to update all of our risks that we have. We've highlighted 9 risks for all of these, and all our questions, the open-ended questions that we still need to answer before this project is done. And then file inventory. All of this stuff is getting updated. It's going to do the first blueprint for sprint 001. And it's just amazing amount of information. This is what makes the architect builder method so powerful. If you were just doing this vibe coding, you wouldn't get this. And so this architect pack is going to allow the builder to populate and write to our folder structure. And these are the detailed set of plans to do that. Okay. So now we have to move this architect. If you're in chat, if you're doing this in CoWork, it can write there automatically, but I'm doing it in chat on purpose to show you that if you don't have CoWork, we're going to have to move this file. We're going to download it as a markdown document, or we're going to add, and we're going to put that in our folder structure right here. Okay. We're going to go to our project SFE MD automation. So I'm going to, and then I'm going to put this in architect packs, right? I'm going to have to manually do this. If you're doing this at CoWork, it would write there automatically, but I just want to show you, we're going to save it to that architect pack. Now, also, I want to show you I'm using Obsidian. This is just a way for me to view that. You can see in my SFE MD automations, it's in that folder right here. And that's exactly what we want. Okay. So You have to do that. You have to move the architect pack to the architect. And now let's go back to our workflow and see where we're at, because we've done a couple steps here. We went ahead and pasted the starter prompt in chat in the Claude project as architect. We had the conversation, and then we answer discovery. We answered the questions, and then eventually we said generate the pack, and it did. And now we're right here on step 9. This is the sprint loop, by the way. This actually repeats. And so we're on step 9, which is the second step of the sprint loop. And we need to apply the pack to the builder. So this is the first time that we're going to be using the builder. Now, I'm using Claude Code. You could do this in Codex. I'm going to pick Claude Code because I want to try this new Fable 5 and see how it does. It's the first time I've done some coding with Fable 5. Now, if you've got the desktop version of Claude, we could certainly go in here into code and we could load it in here. But I want to show you another way. But I want to show you the way I typically do it. It's my preferred way. Don't let this intimidate you, but I use a product called Warp. And Warp is essentially a terminal emulator with a little bit more beefiness to it. It's free, but allows us to open up sessions and use Claude. And so in this case, you can see right here, I started a new session right here, and I can rename these. In fact, I'll rename this right here just to show you the reason why I like using this. I'm going to rename this tab. We'll call it our SFE build. And then I can also change the color of it as well. So we'll make this green. And so it just allows me to do multiple. If I'm doing multiple projects, that's just one thing in here. Like, for example, I could color this and I could rename this the project launcher, which is what I was doing. And so now I can go back and forth between my builds and this and that. So anyway, we are here, and don't let this intimidate you. You could certainly do, it's the same concept if you're doing it on the desktop, but I just want to show you my preferred method. I'm down here. I need to navigate and open up this session in this terminal. I'm in terminal mode right now. I need to navigate to the appropriate folder that I created. So I'm in 120x/builds. I need to go find my new project that I created, and it's right there. It's SFE MDA automation. So now I'm in the appropriate folder to do all of our work. Now I'm going to start Claude, and I'm going to tab this, and I do this dangerously skip permissions. It just allows me, it doesn't stop me every time. It's just a technique that I use. If you're starting out, maybe don't do it this way, but this way, because it stops you and asks you a lot of questions, I'm just going to, hey, skip the permissions. I trust you because I've been doing this enough with you. So I'm going to hit that, and it's going to invoke Claude. And now I'm using Claude Code within my terminal, right? And I'm going to make sure that we're using the right model. And I'm going to see that we're using Fable. Yep, so we're using Fable 5. I could do Sonnet or the others, but I'm going to do Fable in this one since it's new. And I'm going to see how it's going to do. And now what we have to do, if you look at the workflow, it says we need to apply the pack, and this will generate the sprint. And so we open the coding agent at the root of the scaffold folder. That's what we did. And then we need to do a dry run and then apply this code right here, node scripts, to do a dry run. And basically what it's going to do is we're asking the builder to go find the architect pack, read it, tell me what it says. And then if we agree that you're reading the right thing, then we say apply it. And when we say apply it, what it does is it writes to the folder structure that and fills out everything, all those instructions that you saw in the architect pack. Now I have a skill in here, and if you want to learn how to add this yourself, or you can just ask Claude or Claude Code to generate a skill that does this. And so I have a skill that I created called apply pack. And what it does, applying a pack, is it's going out and it's finding the latest architect pack. And in this case, it's finding the pack that we want. And it's doing the thinking. It found architect pack 001, and it said the pack parsed cleanly from visual read. Now verifying it, doing all these things. It's overriding. It's doing all these things. And basically what it said is the dry run is complete. It's read the architect pack. It's parsing it. It's clean. Everything's good. Here are the section. This is what it's going to do. It's going to overwrite all of these documents that we have in there with the appropriate things. It's exactly what I want it to do. Said it's complete, approved to apply. Now, if you're new to this and you say, well, how do I know this is right? You could always copy this, take it back to your architect and ask him, is this okay? He's probably going to say yes. For the sake of the demo, I'm going to say This is approved, apply the pack. And so now it's actually overwriting and doing the actual work. And then notice here, it says the pack is applied. All 12 files were overwritten with the pack content. And we could go in here and we could verify that. If I go back to Obsidian and we look at the domain, look, it's added the domain, it's added the intake, all that stuff is filled in now. It's got the file inventory. So that's what it did. It's got the questions in there. Everything has been written, the risks and the state, all of the things, the instructions from the architect pack, they've gone in here and they've filled everything out. And they've also generated the sprint discovery architecture. We've got the actual blueprint, which is actually going to generate the code and what to do. This is the handoff prompt if we want to give it to the builder, which we'll do here in a second. And actually my skill actually takes that handoff prompt and reads it. And then these are the requirements. So that's exactly what happened here. And it says applied. Are you ready for the builder handoff? I'm happy with what it is. I'm just going to say ready. And what it's doing, it's not writing code here. It's coming up and it's going to tell me the plan. In the architect builder method, it has explicit instructions is don't write any code until you tell me what the plan is. So once it gets done, I'll show you what's next. And in fact, while it's doing that, just to show you what we did, we applied the pack, right? And so it got written. And then now we're saying, are you ready to apply it? I said yes. Remember, I had that skill. The skill actually goes and grabs, let me open up Obsidian. It goes and grabs this handoff prompt and does it. If you don't have that skill in there, you can manually copy this and give the builder this prompt and it'll start to apply. It's not going to write code. It's doing exactly what it's doing here. I just do it through a skill, right? And if we look at the steps, that's what it says is paste the builder prompt. It proposes a plan and then stops. It reads the sprint and summarizes how it builds and waits. It does not write code yet. And that's exactly what happened here, right? It says, here is my plan. Here is my summary. Here's my architecture. What the sprint accomplishment. This is the planning sprint, so on and so forth. It's going to do this. Here's my approach for step 1. Here's my validation plan for the acceptance. Here's blockers, ambiguities. This is his plan. He's not writing codes. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to take this just like it says in the workflow, take the builder's plan to your architect and approve or adjust. So I go back to the architect. And so in this case, our architect was Claude in our chat right here, right? Make sure you're in the right place. And I'm going to paste the plan. And I may say something if you want to. I could say something like, this is the plan from the builder. What do you think? You don't have to do that necessarily. If you just paste it, it knows what to do. And let's see what his response is. And he comes back and he says, hey, the builder's plan is solid. It matches the sprint scope, respects the no code rule. Your actions before approving the 2 hard blockers tells me this, they exist. Rulings on the lesser, approve to proceed, item 4. And it says, here's the suggested approval message to send to the builder. So again, I would read this. If there's anything I don't agree with, I would say, hey, let's add this, let's do that. But for the most part, I pretty much take what the architect says. Now, this is good why we keep it separate, because you can sanity check what the builder does. This way you don't get drift, you don't get hallucinations. You've got another set of eyes that's approving what he's about to do. Now, one thing as a technique, I like to ask the architect to give me these prompts in internal windows, in code windows, so I can just copy them. I'm going to do that real quicker. Can you give me all the messages to send to the builder in an internal code block so I can just copy it in one click? So I don't like copying and pasting from your chat. Again, this is just a technique of mine. It makes it easier instead of highlighting that way. Because sometimes they'll say, go tell them this. And so I just like to do it this way because there's no ambiguity and because sometimes I haven't copied what I needed to copy. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy this reply from the architect and go back to my builder and just paste it. And so again, this is the critical piece that makes your coding solid. It makes the historical knowledge. It keeps everything on track. It reduces bugs. It reduces this context hallucination. Another thing I like to do in terms of organization while it's writing this is making sure we're naming these sessions. Every time I come back to the the builder, I do new sessions. I don't do old sessions. I don't continue the session because I want fresh context each time, if that makes sense. One thing to ask the architect is, how many sprints do you foresee? I'm going to ask it right here. That gives you an idea. How many sprints do you see this happening? I forgot to ask that earlier, but how many total sprints do you think there will be? It's always good to get a sense. I usually do that in the beginning before I start coding, is just to get an idea of like, what are we looking at in total number of sprints? But he's estimating 5, like here, with a likely 6 for punch list items. So this just gives you an idea. This can always change. It's not necessarily written in stone. Discovery and architecture, reader and contract validator, full Word document, the dashboard, golden master package acceptance, and then sprint 06 punch list. Okay, so there we go. So we know it's going to be approximately 6 sprints to get this thing done. Okay, he worked about 8 minutes, and I'm going to read this because I don't want you to get intimidated. I want you to learn how to read these things here. There's nothing to be afraid of looking at it. What did it do? It went out and it parsed the Excel spreadsheet. It found the tab MD&A input. It's doing all these things. It's doing the executive summary. It's reading. It's extracting 37 paragraphs. It's writing, updating our markdown document data contract, which if we wanted to look at that in Obsidian, which it said was in docs and data contract, it's doing the mapping. This is the historical knowledge that makes this architect builder so powerful. Okay. And I know it seems like it's a lot. It is a lot, but writing programs is detailed. And this is the difference between vibe coding and keeping this historical knowledge. It's updating everything. This is why we do this. We got a dashboard spec, which we looked at, a validation, and it shows what it wrote. And then it says the 4 sprint 001 specs are drafted. Here's the report. And so essentially, I would copy this. And there is a remaining for sprint close step 7 on your go. So again, even though I read through this and for the sake of the demo, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to take it back to the architect, right? We're going to go back to our architect chat here in Claude Chat, and we're going to paste the output and see what the architect says. And just so you know, what we're on step 12 of the sprint loop, where it says the builder executes the sprint, builds only the approved sprint, then reports what it created, changed, or validated. So that's what we're doing right now. Again, I get a little validation from the architect. He says strong sprint. Acceptance criterion 2 is the one that matters the most. My review and rulings goes through all the rulings. F001 golden mask contains a human error. He confirmed it. That's good. So again, you can see the power of parsing this complicated Excel spreadsheet. How could you do this without these tools? I just don't know. And then it has a sprint 02 boundary, approve as recommended. And here's the message to send the builder. And the last line, proceed with sprint, close it out, everything else, update everything. So I'm just going to take that, again, for the sake of speed in the demo, I skimmed through this. It sounds good. I would probably take a little more time in the real world doing this. But your architect is pretty strong. These models are pretty strong. I'm going to go back to my builder, and I'm going to tell him what he did, which is basically approving it and closing the sprint. And then again, just to reiterate, we're kind of in this part right here, builder, architect, run the completion review, and it writes the briefing. That's the last thing. Because here's the thing that you need to understand. Claude Code can see your file structure. Claude Code can see all of this and can write to all of it. Your architect can't see this. You have to tell them and give them an update things. So the one thing that we want to do is when this gets done is give the architect briefing back to the architect so it knows where it's at, what happened, and it brings that context up to speed. It also writes that architect briefing to the file structure so that if you start a new chat or you compress a chat, you can always tell it to go read state and the architect briefing, and it's no context is lost, okay? So when this gets done, I'll let you know. Now, while it's writing all this stuff, the one thing I saw, the question is like, where does the GitHub repository? That's one thing that we can do. Let's just go ahead and set up the GitHub while the builder is closing everything out. And what we can do is we can go to GitHub. It's free. Make sure you set up an account. And in here, I'm going to do a new repository. Okay. And so we'll call this build. It says it's available. I'm going to make it private, and then I'm going to leave everything else here the same. I'm going to create the repository, and then essentially now we've got the repository set up. Here is the URL for it. I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to go back, and when this is done, I'll tell them where it is. But I'm also going to tell the architect here. So I'll go back to the architect in Claude, and I'll say, by the way, this is the GitHub I just created. But what matters is as you're writing code and you're getting to this point, like it says right here, sprint 001 is closed and the briefing is written. So it's put it in planning, architect briefing, the status, everything there. So it's all good. Sprint 02 is started. So we can basically close out sprint 001. Now I'm going to do a couple things here. First, I'm going to rename this session. I'm going to call it sprint 001. When you can add some other things to it, but I'm just going to call it sprint 001. And so now it's renamed to sprint 001 because then when you go to ever resume old, you can go to /resume. You can look at your sessions, and since we're in this session already, but I'll show you here in a second. You can pull up the old sprints. When I get a second sprint, since this is the first one, you'll be able to see it. So we renamed this session 001, so it makes sense to us. And then the last thing I'll say, or I'll tell him, I said, let's commit and push to this newly created repo on Git. Now you could do this manually in the terminal yourself. You could do all these things, but I just want to show you if you're new to this, it can do this for you as well. Sometimes I like to just do this manually so doesn't take up tokens. What it's doing now is it's closing this out and it's going to write all this code that it's done into the cloud onto your GitHub. And so that way, if anything crashes or you pick up, you'll always have something you can fall back on going from there. Okay, so now it said it's pushed and it's live. So I can go to my code and look at my commits now, and it should have one commit, and it does. And there's sprint 001. It's saved to the cloud. So everything that we did is now resting safe, backed up in the cloud. And so now we can proceed to sprint 002. So if you look at the run the completion view, it writes the briefing, and notice that it created architect briefing. This is a way to communicate back to the architect when we close out the sprint. So I'm pretty much closed on this sprint 001. So I'm going to hit clear, and we basically cleared the context, cleared the memory, and we can start a new sprint 002 when we're ready. But now we're going to go back to the architect, and I'm going to go ahead and, so if you're in Cowork, it would automatically write this, but we need to update. Now here's the thing. People ask, should we start a new chat with the architect, or do we continue this on? I tend to continue on until this memory gets cleaned up. But the architect briefing that we have here, and let me open up my 120x folder. If we go to the builds to my specific project, and I'm looking for that architect briefing for my folder, it's in planning, and it's right here, right? If we want to read what's inside of it, that's where Obsidian comes in. And if I go to planning, there's my architect briefing. Over here, you can see he's updating, written, what it does, what's the status, the delta since the last briefing, so on and so forth. It's just a good way to keep the context and keep the architect on track because it can't see all these files that is written. So we got to kind of communicate with the architect and let him know what's happening. It's just a good technique. And so if I'm back here in the architect and I open up take that file in the 120x folder, that architect briefing, I'm going to go ahead and add it to this chat. Okay. So I've added the architect briefing, and I'm going to tell them that architect pack 001 is closed. Put them in here. Sprint 001 is now closed. I've given you the briefing. We can prepare for architect pack 002. You can see right there, it didn't it should know what it said. The good thing about large language models, it didn't copy my voice thing. It says architect, oh, I'm sorry, Sprint 001 goes, I've given you the briefing. We can prepare architect pack 002. So even though it's kind of gobbledygook, it's going to know what it's talking about. And so right here, it says briefing is read. This is exactly what the return handoff should look like. Sprint 001 is accepted on my side as well. Before pack 023 observation, the GitHub addendum didn't make it in the close. That's fine. So it's in git ignore. Two clean items will sweep up. Proposed contents are this. Planning state, that's good, so on and so forth. And he's basically saying confirm everything, the repo status, and generate the pack. Yes, the repo is up and live. He pushed to it there. You can generate the pack for 002. Okay, for about 7 minutes, it created architect pack 002. And we have it here. We can review it. We can go through. And again, for the sake of time, just to see where we're at, if we look at the project launcher, where we're at with the workflow, we've run the briefing, and now we've returned back up here to start the new sprint. And we're at the point where we generated the pack for 002, right? And so now we need to apply the pack in the builder. So that's where we're at. We're repeating this whole process. We've started architect pack 2. We need to do some discovery context with it to make sure that we answer any questions. 2 deliberate design choices. Again, we can worth noting. First, the pack does not overwrite decisions, but the builder edited these. Second step, spread is mandatory. Repo hygiene, which, yep, we talked about. So again, in real life, I would sit there and I'd take the time and what this delivers, making sure I'm understanding it. Again, the more that you read this, the more that you understand, and you can make sure that your code is doing what it's supposed to do. Get the acceptance criteria, all looks good. So we need to save this to our architect pack. So we're going to download this as a markdown file. And we're going to put this in the appropriate folder. And since we navigated there last time when we downloaded, it's already in the architect packs. So we're going to save this. And again, I know it sounds repetitive, but I just want to remind you that we need to apply the pack. Now you could copy this code in the builder, but I have that skill called apply packs, but that's what it's doing is you can copy this and apply it. In fact, I'll just show you that instead of doing apply pack. And now we're going to go back to our builder. I've got a new session going. I'd hit clear. So I got a new context window going. And I'm just going to paste this command and it should go find that new architect pack. So there's a dry run. Again, just the same as we did last time. I could take it back to the architect to ask for approval, but I read this and this looks good. I'm going to just say approve, apply the pack. And so now it's actually writing the files, actually adding the content to our folder structure. He's saying that's complete, that it's been written. We can go double check that. Open up Obsidian. You can see there is the sprint that just got created, sprint 002. We can look in our architect packs. We can see that architect pack 2 is in our folder system. And we've got the acceptance criteria. We've got the blueprint. We've got the handoff prompt. We've got the requirements ready, all for sprint 002 in here. So I'm going to do a rename here, and we'll call it sprint 002. Again, this is a technique. And so this session is now sprint 002. So at least I know I can always go back and look at my other sprints. So he said applied. He said he's ready for the builder handoff. I'm like, yes, I'm ready. And I'll say yes, ready for builder handoff. And this, again, is he's not writing the code. He's going to tell me what the plan is. It's baked into the architect builder method that if you see right here, we've applied the pack. It says, where it says paste the builder prompt. Because I got that skill in there, it's actually reading the prompt that is written in there. But if you have any doubt, you can always go grab that prompt. You can go grab that's in that sprint and copy that and give it to him if there's any questions. But I got a skill that just goes and reads this handoff prompt. Again, you can tell your builder to create a skill to do that too, so you don't have to necessarily paste it because the handoff prompt is there. And so that's what it's doing now, is it's doing that handoff prompt and it's coming up with the plan. Okay, the plan is written. Like we said, he's asking for our approval. So again, this is where I need my architect's help, or I want that second opinion. I'll go back to my architect and I will paste in here. This is the plan and see what the architect says. All right. Confidence is high. It says plan is approved. Summary is faithful to the pack and the blocker is legitimate catch. For you, how did the project get pushed from a different local copy? He's asking me. He'll also need to give the builder push access. I did. He's just being secure. I already gave access to the builder to push there, so he's fine. But again, this is the architect being the architect. This is why I love this method so much, is because there's all these checks and balances to make sure you don't get this contextual drift and you miss little things like that. So I'm going to copy his response, and then I will take it back to the builder, paste it, and see what he says. And again, just to reiterate where are we at with the workflow. We propose the plan and stops. We've taken the builder's plan back to the architect to approve and adjust, and then the builder executes the sprint. And that's what we're doing right now. Okay, we cleaned up the Git local. That was part of the things here. Now he's asking me, we cleaned that up. Now am I cleared to go to step 1? I'm going to go ahead, since this was kind of an anomaly here, the step 0 complete. I just want to communicate with the architect that this happened, and then to make sure that we're good to go to proceed with the rest of the writing of the code. So I'm going to go back to the architect here and copy those comments there and see what the architect says. Again, just a sanity check. Again, this is why I like going back and forth with the architect and the builder, to make sure we're not missing these little things like this, where I had kind of a messy idea that my Git was local, and we're like, no, we're pushing it out here. Let's just make sure it's all clean. And that's what we're doing here. He's saying clean result, best case outcome, history scan was done properly, nothing here needs escalation. And let's go. He's given me it's accepted, approved, begin step 1. I'll get with them and we'll copy this since it's the demo. We'll just assume that's done. I'm going to say approved, and then we'll start writing the code. Okay, sprint 02 is finally complete. This was a long one. This took almost 25 minutes. And since I'm using Fable, I actually ran out of context and tokens, so I had to upgrade my plan. We're seeing how Fable does, but it says here, we stop per the blueprint, stop sprint 3 not started. What was built? Contract plus the validator, the formatter, the executive summary, the regeneration check, all 76 tests passed. We're going to push it to commit. Looks all good. I'm going to bring my architect in just to make sure everything is good. They've updated everything here. So I'm going to take that architect briefing, and let me get into my architect conversation here. And I'm going to put that architect briefing in this chat. And that way we'll see what the architect says. Okay, and our architect says sprint 02 is accepted. 76 tests fail. These questions are ratified as decision. 1 missed to sweep up the demo stipulated answers. I put some demo answers in here since we're doing a demo. And then he's saying proposed pack 3 contents for review. All looks good for me. And then we can basically say start generate the pack for 04. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we'll just repeat the process again, reminding you like where we're at on the flow. Builder executed the sprint, run the completion view, writes the briefing, it did. And then I went back to the architect, and we're getting ready to generate the pack for 003. And it's just repeating the process from here. I'm going to go back to the architect, and I'm basically going to say, let's generate the pack. Okay, we've closed out sprint 002. You can generate the pack for 003. And just so you know, the question is, do you start a new chat with the architect? It's up to you. If you do start a new chat in here, I just continue to press it on. It's probably better if you do start one. There's some benefits to doing it, basically from token usage, because if you've got that briefing pack, you could start a new chat here in the architect and give it the briefing pack and say, hey, generate 003. And it will know it'll have that context, right? But this is just my technique. The advantage of continuing this conversation is that it has the context of what we've done since we've started. And then if it gets to the point where it needs to compress, we can compress. Not ideal, uses a lot of tokens that way. So if you're trying to save on tokens, I might start a new chat in my project. Again, remember, we're in this project right here. We're in a chat. You can start a new chat here, give it that architect briefing, and tell it to do 3. But the thing that you want to make sure that you always do is that in the builder that you are doing a new. So here I'm back at the builder. Everything's been pushed. Sprint 002 is closed. That's good. I'm going to hit clear the context. And so we've got a new chat starting in here. And if I go check on GitHub, we can look, if I refresh, we can look at our commits. And sure enough, we've got multiple commits in here because we were cleaning things up before that. But everything is pushed, everything is saved. We've got some great fallbacks on there. So we are looking good. So again, starting here, he's generating the pack for 03 as we speak. And from there, it's just repeating the process. Again, when you're starting the architect too, you could also, if I wanted to say do sprint 3, in fact, I'll show you this here since he just finished the architect pack for 003. Here's the next sprint. I don't have to do this in Warp. I could do this in my desktop in Claude Code over here just to show you. I still need to move, since I'm talking with chat, I need to move this to the architect pack. So here's 003. I'm saving it there. And again, just to give you a visual, if you look at the folder structure on the architect packs, we've got all 3 of them right here. The third one was here. We've got 2 sprints, and we're getting ready to apply and do the 3rd sprint. But let's just do this just for the sake. Let's do it in Claude Code in the desktop. I don't have to do it in Warp and Terminal. Just to let you know, it's doing the same thing. It's just a different interface. But I need to move to the appropriate folder, right? So I still need to go to my builds. There's my folder and work out of there, right? I'm going to start, and I want to run my skill apply pack, and it's going to go find the newest sprint. And notice right here, it started a sprint down here. I'm going to rename this sprint 003. Look over here on the left. I'm going to move it to a group. I'm going to create a new group. Since I'm doing it in the desktop, we'll call it this SE build group, just so I know which project it's in. And so notice now I've got over on the left the sprint 003. And so even though I did sprints 1 and 2 in this terminal, it's the same thing. I'm just talking the Claude Code. It doesn't really matter. And again, if I wanted to open up, resume other sprints, I haven't saved sprint 003 yet. In this terminal, you can see that I've got sprint 1, sprint 2, and there's sprint 3 that I've just started, which is over in here in the desktop. I like doing it in the terminal. I'm going to approve this, dry run, and then it's going to write, and it's just repeating the same process over and over. So apply the pack, generates a sprint, paste the builder prompt. Again, my apply pack skill actually reads the prompt. So basically right now what it's doing is it's writing. You can see right now it's writing this criteria right now for sprint 003. And I hope that's helpful, and I'm ready for the builder handoff. I'll just say I'm ready. And essentially what it's doing now is going to write the plan for sprint 003. And while that's writing, just over here in Warp, just to show you some tools, you can click on this tools panel. And again, you can see that same folder structure just that I had in there. Here's all my output, the planning, the references. So again, you don't even need Obsidian to read these things. Here's the source code is in here. All of that is in here. And you can read these documents too. Since they're documents, you can open them up here. And this is kind of why Warp is kind of a nice tool as well. Again, you can see all your codes. You can look at your agents MD folder, everything that you can see in Obsidian on your folder over in here, you can view in Warp as well. Again, this is just a technique, tools. A lot of people, if you're new to it, they don't like using this because it's a little more intimidating. Whereas here in Claude Code, it's all in one. You can go back and forth between the architect and the builder. It's a technique, it's just personal preference. I'm going to copy this message in this plan. I'm going to go back to my architect, and I'm going to give him that plan to see what he says. Again, I'm just doing this one more time for you. I'm hoping you get in the process. Again, I'm just following this method that's in the architect builder. This is why I gave this to you, because the process can be confusing. But if you follow this, it kind of makes sense. And really, it's just setting up the architect, get that project set for the first run, get that download scaffolding onto your hard drive, get that architect starter prompt to start the conversation. And then once you start that conversation, it's just back and forth with the architect and the builder and then keeping the architect informed with the architect briefing, and then go back and forth. And eventually, when you get all the sprints done, you'll have a finished product. So here's what the architect says about O3. It says a faithful summary. Looks good. Ruling 1, summary approved. Proceed with step 0, rulings. And so I'll just copy that. I go back to the builder and say what the architect said. Sometimes it'll miss things, and sometimes you'll catch things. But anyway, we go back and forth there. Okay, I'm going to pause it here, and I'm just repeating this process. And I've taken the builder's plan, the architect, and now he's going to execute the sprint. And that's where we're at right here. And then when we get done with that sprint, we'll just repeat it until we're done. All right, so I will pause this, and then I'll pick up when we're actually done and we got the dashboard and the report done. Okay, so we just finished sprint number 5. And you can look at it here. If you look at the kind of planning documents in the Obsidian here, we're looking at this. Let me blow it up for you a little bit. We're looking at this product right here, or this build. And in the planning documents, we've got 5 architect packs that we did, and that corresponds to the 5 sprints that we did. Each sprint had acceptance, blueprint, handoff requirements. This one had a manual validation here because it's running a test. So, and then we also, if we look committed to GitHub, we've got all our commits right here to the cloud, and we're looking, all our code is duplicated up here in the cloud, so it's all backed up. So let's look at the actual output that we got after 5 sprints. Took a couple hours to get here, but now we've got somewhat of a user interface where the CFO can go and drop his 250 tab spreadsheet in here. And then we put the manual inputs for last year's numbers, but we get last period or output to JSON, last month's numbers, so it makes it easy to autofill this in. And then we'll generate the MD&A, and you can see right here we get 3 generations. We get the Word document that he wanted, which is automatically filled out. Let me bring it into the screen here for you. So it's a little cleaner. Again, it's still kind of boring, but we could format this, but this is what he was wanting. And so it's automatically all filled out, grabbing everything, writing the narratives, so that makes it easy for him, so he's not hunting and pecking. The next month's JSON that we would use for next month. And then, of course, we've got a dashboard that he can maybe share a link in HTML, and it shows all of the key points and numbers and data, interactive to a degree. Again, it's all a first pass. We can make this better. We can make it look however we want, but this was just after 5 sprints and a couple hours worth of work. Build it with you. There's literally what I do. You can go check out the cohort. I can walk you through it, or I can build it yourself. I've built over 35 applications over the last 18 months, some enterprise level that took me 3 months to build, which would have taken 8 to 10 months to build in the old way, but I did it by myself for 3 months. Whole different world away. Either way, if this changed how you look at things and you got one of your own spreadsheets, do me a favor, subscribe, let me know what that is. We can maybe build it on here. I can demo it. This is the thing I kind of do here. Real ones every week. So I'll see you in the next one. So there it is, the thing that used to eat half a day every couple weeks, done. The numbers aren't retyped. They're pulled straight from his spreadsheet. So they're right. He's got a clean report and an interactive dashboard, and he spends a few minutes reviewing instead of a half a day hunting and plunking around. So 2 things I want you to take away from this. Number 1, that 250-pound monster of his was a software application the whole time. If you've got a big spreadsheet, a legacy spreadsheet that's been around for years, there's software application in there. And the good news is he had already done a lot of the hard part. He knew where the numbers, which numbers matter, where they lived. He just never thought of it as something that you could build. And you've got one too in your organization. It's there. It doesn't have to be finance. It could be sales report. It can be operations. Any department works for anywhere. The report you rebuild every couple of weeks, the I got to do this again task. That's not busy work. That's an opportunity sitting in your business. So number 2, this is not as hard as it looks. Once you understand it, once you get the flow down, you don't need a computer science degree. You need to be able to see the big picture. That's the skill set. And if you're in a role in a business and operations or whatever the case may be, you can see the big picture. You don't need to hire developers and wait 6 months. You don't need to go buy some bloated SaaS solution that almost fits and then bills you forever. And you still got to do customizations. You still got to throw overhead and bodies to get it to fit your workflow. Now you can build the exact thing to your situation needs. You can use ChatGPT or Claude as your architect. You can use Claude Code or Codex as your builder. And that method to keep it on the rails, that's what that project launcher does. So you're not just vibe coding into a mess. That's the skill. And once you got it, man, you start looking at every bottleneck in your organization and the ideas start coming and you start looking at your business differently. If you got a couple people in your organization that can do exactly what I showed you to do, your whole organization is completely transformed. That's the AI revolution. And again, a lot of it's not even AI. It's just using the AI to help you create the code and the tools. So here's what you do. If you want to build this yourself, you can go get that project launcher. You saw it in here, the project launcher I used in this video. That's the thing that sets up the whole architect builder scaffolding, which is so important. It also primes your ChatGPT or your Claude chat to be the architect, so it understands this process. It's 18 months of refinement to get it here. You look at the testimonials on the sales page. There are people who have been in software engineering said this is the right way to do it. This is the way to launch software, the way to launch applications if you want to build it yourself. It's at 120x.ai/launcher, the founding price while it lasts. A whole different world away. Either way, if this changed how you look at things and you got one of your own spreadsheets, do me a favor, subscribe. Let me know what that is. We can maybe build it on here. I can demo it. This is the thing I kind of do here. Real ones every week. So I'll see you in the next one.